parents. We're here again with Dr. Bowen and doing another one of our parent podcast episodes. Pastor Ryan, a couple of days ago, when you had seen the last episode, talked a lot about health and medicine and even nutrition for our kids. Today, I think we're going to kind of just aim a little bit of this conversation a little bit more about just mental health, anxiety, and some of the things that we can do to help our kids out with that. So I have to tell, first thing right away, white coat syndrome is real for me. And so I'm even nervous sitting next to the doctor. And in fact, I love also the fact that our church world is colliding with the medical world, because a lot of times we see it's not always viewed that way.
Yes.
And so sometimes you see these enemies between science and religion, and it's just not something that probably is healthy for us at all. And this actually impacted me personally. One time I was a kid and I was 5 years old. I was going in to get my tetanus shot.
Yes.
And I had to do it at the health county clinic, and it was a nightmare because there's a huge long line.
Yes.
And but that was what we did. That's how mom was going to pay for it.
Yes.
And I remember watching everybody else get their tetanus shot and start crying.
Yes.
And as a 5-year-old, and you're in the line and you're watching other people cry, it develops something inside of you. And so I ran.
No, absolutely.
I bolted.
Absolutely.
I literally bolted. I juked and dodged every chair that was there. My mom was chasing me, and she grabbed me.
Yeah.
And of course, I was escorted outside with my mother, and she was about to wear me out, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And it was there that faith and science collided. There was a lady from the church who, I don't know if she had been interceding and praying on the behalf of some poor 5-year-old who was about to die at the hands of his mom because he ran out of the Humane Society, or the Humane Society. That's the animal clinic. It's the same thing. But at any rate, it was a wild moment.
Yes.
And she spared my life. That lady did.
There
so
you go.
Here we are.
You know, I think that happens at our office from time to time.
I'm sure. And so there's tear that's a part of that. But anyway, one of the things that I would say, so I've got 3 kids who have gone through all of the pediatrics in your offices since I've been here in Oklahoma. And especially with my boys, I remember a couple of things that you used to always do that was a challenge to me as a parent. So I kind of want to start off that way. Because in the time, of course, you're in the room, they're sitting there, everybody's a little bit nervous. We've got this whole white coat thing going on, blood pressure's is high. And you would come in and you'd be examining the boys, and it was just, for lack of a better term, it was an interrogation it was just a barrage of questions that you would throw out at them. And I remember that I felt convicted as a parent sometimes when I would leave the room, because I was like, she asked harder and more pointed and more valuable questions in 5 minutes than maybe I've done, and I live with these kids at all times. And so I love that, because I think that I think you were able to get information out of them that was incredible.
It's helpful. It's helpful.
And so I guess the question in all of that is, there's a couple things here. Number one, what's the best approach for parents to begin to encourage the open conversations? Because I was amazed how my boys would just spill it.
I think part of it is, one, your kid knows that you're interested in this. You can't be asking them that and be on your phone or watching TV or doing your work. You need to, they know I'm there to talk to them, and I look at them and talk to them. Probably not, now that we have the iPads in the room that I have to put things on, it's much more difficult to have those kind of conversations with kids. But they know that I want to know what's going on with them. So that's something that you can do as a parent, is just make sure that they know that you're serious about something. The other thing is that as parents, if they tell you something that you feel like, man, this is not something I want to hear, or you're really taken off guard by it,
which might be every day, but
you can't lose your mind and be like, that is so bad. Who did that? Who's doing that? Who told you that? Because you'll never, ever get any information again, because they were like, oh, nope, that's how they react. I think it's interesting. When my oldest daughter was moving into high school, our school that the girls went to had a psychologist come and talk to us. And she told us that. She goes, you need to have some catchphrases, because if you lose your cool and if you let them know that you're kind of freaked out by this, that's it. You have one chance. And that gives you time. So you have a catchphrase, and it gives you time to kind of mull through your head, okay, what am I going to say? What can I do? How can I not overreact? And so you just go, wow, what'd you think of that? you know?
Right.
So,
I think following up with a question on those things and asking
absolutely.
and engaging
so if they
a little
tell
bit.
you, we had a situation one time at our house where one of my daughters saw something not great on the bus. And she got off the bus, and my husband was talking about how was your day, and she proceeds to tell him this thing that he was totally appalled by. I mean, he was just, oh my gosh, and he just didn't know what to say. So he did say, "What do you think about that?" And she had a really appropriate thing that was truly not a good thing. Why would anybody do that? And he said, "That is right. I think that's something you should think about always, that you just never would want to put yourself in that situation and have it." So the kids will answer the question for you if you let them. But as parents, we want to hop in there and, we're always trying to do the best thing, but sometimes you just got to let them unravel their story.
And I think there's so much value in that, because I think there's this place where you allow a kid to actually say what they think.
Yes.
It might surprise you as a parent that maybe they are catching it, and
Yes.
they're learning what
Yes.
maybe you've been trying to teach, even though you didn't feel like maybe you've been a great teacher.
Absolutely.
So just kind of a follow up to all of that. What are maybe, and maybe this is more age specific too, so we can kind of navigate through that a little bit. But what are some strategic questions that every parent should be asking their kids at different points in their
Right. I think the important things to know, one, you have to be an open-ended question. You can't ask your kid. We all have done that. We're in the car, we pick them up from school, and you say, "How was your day?" "Fine." "What did you do?" "Nothing." And you're just like, you're just deflated as a parent because you don't know how to do that. So things when they're little, say, "Who'd you eat lunch with?" And so if they say, "Oh, I ate lunch with Sarah," you say, "Oh, well, how is Sarah?" And then you can find out, and they start talking about, "Oh, well, Sarah's the girl who rides horses." And you go, "Oh, well, that's cool. What do you think about riding horses?" And they may say, "Oh, I don't like riding horses, but you know what? I like roller skating." And so you can find things out about them just by a very simple thing. So giving something that's more than a yes or no or just fine, that sort of question. Same thing that we try to do with adults, but it's the same thing with kids. So important things, what'd your teacher say to you today? Who'd you eat lunch? What did you eat at lunch? What did you eat? Who sat next to you on the bus? Those types of things. Or what was your favorite thing about today at school?
Sure.
We had a kind of a situation where my husband one day was just frustrated because the girls were fussing about things at school and who had been mean and who said what, and that stuff that we all hear as parents. And he finally just kind of said, "All right, surely somebody said something nice to you today. Each of you tell me who said something nice to you, who did something nice for you." And so we kind of made it accidentally a competition for our kids. So they were at dinner kind of held accountable for a period of time when we were all able to be at dinner and we weren't at sports and all of that, and just say, we didn't want to hear all the negative, because the kids get caught up in the negative just like we do. And that is not good for their mental health. And so we want them to realize when somebody has done good things to them. I know the same happens to me. Yeah.
It's so easy to focus on the negative.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much value there of just drawing out some of those
So at
positive
dinner,
things.
we just kind of we made them accountable for telling us, remembering someone who was nice to you, that said something nice and did something nice, but also what did you do nice for someone, and what did you say nice for someone. And my kids are, and all kids are, they are super competitive with their siblings, and so they were trying to always out nice
each other. Yeah.
Yes. And so initially we were kind of like, that's not really how we intended, but if you meet my kids out in the world, everybody says that they're just nice, that they're nice. My one daughter that lives in New York, frequently people would be, where are you from? Because she's just nice. She just does something as simple as saying, at the line at the restaurant or the takeout kind of places, and she says, may I have some sour cream, please? People don't do that in the world anymore, but people notice it when you do, and that changes someone's day. So I try to tell my kids, I've kind of put that into the kids in my practice as one of the things that we kind of close out with when I'm doing all of my kind of lecture part of what we do. And I tell them, I said, you know what, let's try to do something nice and say something nice every day, because the world's rough, guys. If you see, if you're at Target and the guy in front of you is being mean to the cashier, she's feeling crummy. Mm-hmm. And so if you just say something like, oh, I really like your necklace, or oh my gosh, your shirt's so cute. That changes everybody's day. And so just trying to get us back into doing that, because there is a lot of negative in our world and the kids perceive that.
And I think that obviously when you're a parent and you're starting that young, those are things that begin to, those are routines and habits. We'll talk about that in a second, but just routines that we create with our kids at dinner time and table talk when you're going around the table.
Absolutely.
It's the same question that maybe you've been asking for 10 years, but they come to expect it and they come to know it. So let's throw a curveball there a little bit. So teenagers
are rough.
And for some of us who maybe we didn't do a great job when they were younger at pushing, hey, who are you nice to today? How are we engaging conversation with them based off of some of the things that you see each and every day?
You know, I think it's important to figure out which classes do you like the most, because you can always jump that off. So something that they're really liking, and if you can't even do that because they think they're not big on school, just ask them, you know what, who are you listening to on your earbuds? Who's your favorite artist? What music do you like? All these kids love their music. So ask them, who's your music? And then you can jump from that, and you can tell, like if your kid's a country kid, then you can kind of go to that. Or if you have a kid who's doing more pop stuff, or if they're a rap kid, it just helps you kind of clue into your kids. So think of the things that you think that the kids are doing. What's your favorite movie? The kids go to see all the Marvel movies. Oh, what do you think about that? Did you really like it? Was it as good as the sequel, or was it kind of stinky like the last one? That sort of thing. Just any opportunity of something that they're doing, if you can kind of grasp on and ask for their expertise on it, that makes them feel heard, makes them feel important. And all teenagers want to do is be grown up. They don't want you to treat them like a baby.
It's so true.
Yeah, they don't want you to treat them like a baby. And so sometimes we get stuck in that baby stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just find that, like, and going into all that, I think that so much of this is a responsibility of the parent to maybe put the phone down, put the devices down, because we can, there's a quote, and I've used it before, of just this idea that we convince people by our presence.
Exactly.
And you convince them that you love, you convince that you care, you convince that their time is valuable to you.
Absolutely.
By your undivided presence in that moment.
Absolutely.
And so that's a good thing.
I see parents in our office when I am in the exam room on their phones the whole time I'm talking. And it's not even that, that's disrespectful for Dr. Bowen, but it's actually a little bit disrespectful to your kid, because your kid looks at that and they think, you know what?
So true.
They can't pay attention at the doctor's office, then how much do I matter? And so even though we're listening and we're on our phone, and, because I'm called all the time, and so now my answering service texts me instead of having the pager, I'm tied to that phone all the time, and so I am bad with my phone. I am, but my kids are grown, so it's not as big of a deal. But I see parents with it all the time, and we really need to sit it down, because the kids are watching us. They're always watching, even if they're 15 or 16. We're modeling what kind of adult we want them to be, and we want someone, if they're telling you about your baseball game, and you're also thinking, well, I'll just see what my friend is saying, or you're answering their text. It's kind of like, this isn't important. This text is more important.
For sure. Let's springboard off of that a little bit. Yes. I know that you talked with Pastor Ryan a little bit about some of the negative effects of technology and some of our phone usage, but there are a couple things. Because obviously, our mental health and our physical health are all kind of intertwined together.
Absolutely.
And we know that social media, our phones, what kids have access to, we call it like this, that they never have to, they're always connected to the world.
They're always,
And so with all of that, like, what are some warning signs? Let's go there, because we know that it's a problem.
Right.
But what are some warning signs that maybe technology is impacting our children negatively? What are the things we need to watch out for?
If you see that they're just not social, if they're just texting friends and not having interactions with them, our teenagers need to go out and hang out with each other in person and meet each other and, learn relationships of friendship and different kinds of things. I like this person, I don't like this person. You can't do that by texting. And we have a lot of kids who are just staying home. Or they're like, oh yeah, my friends are the friends that I play video games with, but we don't really know who they are. They could be adults. We don't know who they are. It's just a name that's on the screen, and that's who they're interacting with. We want them to have real world interactions and experiences. So I think, I'm a big proponent. Anytime I have a principal in my office, I'm like, they need to not have their phones. My kids were kind of in that phone, but not nearly what it is now, and their school didn't allow it. They could have their phones, but when you came in, there was a basket. And I would say just all of us are impacted by our phones regardless, because we get to experience things, good and bad, that we would have never done in our little world in Oklahoma. But some of that stuff is negative. Kids are seeing things that are not in their age group, not in their behavior patterns that you would normally see. And so putting limits on it of, the things, I think that TikTok, Instagram, those are rough. For girls, it impacts their thoughts about what they feel about on their body. We all know as grown-ups that is all filtered. They don't know that because they don't have real world experience. And they think, my gosh, look at her. She's putting her makeup on that way. I bought all the same things. Why don't I look like her? And it impacts them. We have many studies, particularly with girls, that show that Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok lead to increased anxiety and depression in our kids. And so part of that is just not real world experience and interacting. So if you see your kid not meeting with friends, not wanting to be social with us, we all have that stereotypical thing of, oh, the kids go up in the room and slam the door. But they should be coming to, if church is a big part of your life, coming to church. They should still want to be participating in their sports. If they're kids who like sports and they're suddenly like, I don't want to play baseball anymore, you need to check that out.
Start to pull back a little bit. So if you do start noticing these things, and we'll kind of wind down here in a second, but as you do start to notice that there's maybe a pullback or that there's some negative behavior that's being attached to the phone usage, okay, practical steps that a parent should take, and then when do we go and get help?
I think practical steps are just limiting it. You can't have those electronics in your room. Okay. We can't see everything, but we can kind of peek over when they're on the couch, but you also are kind of interacting with them. But I say put firm limits on it. No phones at the dinner table. Yeah. No phone. We kept Gabby, that youngest child, they kind of get...
They can break the rules a little bit, yeah.
We used to have a time where you had to hand your phone in, and then you went upstairs. So you weren't on your phone. Because you know what? That temptation is there. We all do it. We hear that little ding. We want to listen to it, see what it was. Is it important? What's my friend saying? Well, that pulls way more in a teenager. So if you have it out of sight, out of mind, it's important. So just putting parameters on it. And you can no kid likes it, but you can put parameters on how long this app is allowed to work all day. In China, TikTok is different. It doesn't have any of this negative stuff. It is all very pro everything. It's like people getting medals, people winning things, people training.
I don't think that's what it is here.
Things. It's not. But here's the other interesting thing is that you have to put your age in it. And, things are a little different there. Yeah. And a kid can't say that they're 13 when they're not. But what happens is nobody can be on it longer than an hour. It times out and will not let you back in for 24 hours. Yeah. And so even though that sounds ridiculous, but something like that, we don't need to be spending all of our time that. It's just, we get lots of negative feedback. And there are cool people who be, oh, but my kid saw it. That's cool, but we also need to make parameters. If you think there's trouble, if you see your kid is doing things like you're noticing that they're cutting, or they're just always wearing long sleeves and you can never, and it's summer, and you're outside wearing, then we should be interested in what's going on there. Is it really that we're cold, or is there something going on? Or if you see that their friends don't want to hang out with them anymore, the people that they used to hang out with aren't coming over, aren't calling, you don't hear from those moms anymore about, can they spend the night? We need to be checking in and maybe calling. If you just are seeing that, check in with them. If you don't get anything, call your doctor, your pediatrician, somebody else who can help you with your kid. Because sometimes the kid won't tell you and they'll tell somebody else. We're too close sometimes.
Sure. So just one quick question
absolutely.
Here. And that would just be this. We all want our kids to be healthy. We want our kids to succeed in life.
Yes, absolutely.
You've seen kids from the day that they were born until the day that maybe they graduate or until they're off their parents' insurance or however that works. Yeah. This is a tough question maybe, but is, like, if you were to say these are the keys to successful parenting, or these are the keys to raising a kid who is healthy and thriving in this world, are there just one or two things that you would just quickly throw out?
I think giving your kid time. We are all so busy, and the way things are now, both parents are working, you have your work responsibilities, and you get home, you're trying to do dinner, and you got the laundry and all this, and then we realize we really haven't talked to our kids. And so really making sure that your kid knows that you're engaged with them. And a lot of times as parents we think, well, we we paid for your baseball and we sat at the baseball game and we did whatever, but we really haven't talked to them. So just checking in with them. And if you start that when they're little, they don't resist it as much as when they're teens because it's just part of their life. But sometimes as parents, we're kind of in that kind of doing the chores of parenting when they're toddlers because they're a handful and you're trying to do things and balance all of that. Sure. And then we realize, oh my gosh, when they're teenagers, we got to get on the, we got to get moving here and do some right things. And those kids are like, hey, what? This is not our norm. Yeah. So you got to start little, but just letting them know, let them know you're proud of them instead of just being great. Like, oh, yay, he made A's. Let them know, you know what, I know that was hard for you. I know that chemistry was really difficult and you struggled in that, but golly, look at all that. You really put in the time and you worked hard. I am so proud of that effort. Yeah. Even if they were working really hard and they didn't get the A and they got the B and they're disappointed, let them know, you know what, I saw that you put forth the effort. And sometimes, as hard as we do it, it's not perfect. I don't make an A every single time. And so they should know that, you know, we recognize when they're working hard and that they do things and that they've tried so hard. And because, you know what, we all need to be able to develop some pride and just feel like you are capable. So just being pride and capable, those are good things to instill in your kids. So that's why chores are important. But just noticing them. Yeah. You know, if they cut their hair different, be like, hey, why'd you do that? That's so cool. Why'd you do that? You know, instead of you're like, oh, why is your hair blue? You're like, why did you do that? That's so cool.
Again, it comes back to, I think, a lot of engagement and your presence and being a part of
Absolutely. And just trying really hard. I mean, my kids will probably listen to this and go, Mom, really? You didn't do that so great. But I have had the pleasure and joy of watching so many people raise their kids.
Sure.
So many people interact with their kids. And there's many things that I wish I had done differently. So I just try to pass on what I've seen worked really great for a family. You know, this is a great idea. This is what I saw. Try to pass that on to people because it's hard. We have so many influences that are outside of what we teach in our family and in our church and what we hope for our kids to be and what our beliefs are. We have lots of people, even in the schools, you know, the teachers and the kids, and they see this on their phone, and we want to know what they're hearing and also kind of what do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why we want to do the parent podcast like this is because there are voices all throughout our community who are incredibly valuable, who have a lot of wisdom, who have seen a lot of kids going through it, and that's part of why we put these things together. None of us are. I'm definitely not perfect as a parent. Dr. Bowen might be, Pastor Ryan might be, but I am not perfect at all, and I've made plenty of mistakes. But we're thankful that all of you guys have chosen to join with us and watch along, and hopefully learn something and take it away and begin to apply it in your family at home. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and thank you, Dr. Bowen, for coming and hanging.
It's great, so fun.